everyone. This is Ebony Vaughn, and as always, I come to you by way of Nexus Wellness Group and Triple G Living, God Goes and Grind. And I am always excited to come and share with you a word that equips, a word that encourages, and a word that empowers the people of God. I wanted to talk about something today that really sparked from a coaching kind of supervision session that I just had with a leader and a clinician. And I think that this is something that, as a leader and even as a communicator, whatever role you're in, whether in ministry, whether in the marketplace, whether in your families, in your personal relationships, I think is so important. And what I want to talk about is the importance of not taking things so personal. Really, I want to say to some leaders, I want to say to some people today, let's just calm down a little bit. Everything is not about you. Now, why am I even talking about this? I think that it is essential that we learn to not take resistance, questions, or even requests to justify our actions personally. Now, I know that this touches a lot of people, right? But oftentimes I talk to leaders, right? Oftentimes I talk to those in the helping profession. And I think that as leaders, we can experience emotional injury when we feel challenged, right? When we feel questioned, when we feel that someone is going up against something that we have done, or maybe they are going up against something that we have said and we perceive it that way, right? And sometimes when this happens, bias and defensiveness quietly rise, right? It rises in us, right? And leadership and our leadership, it really begins to shrink because at that time we're kind of reacting to an injury that we've experienced. But I want to say today that true leadership is not about protecting our ego, but it is really about maintaining presence and connecting with those that we serve or those that we lead. Now, I'm talking to leaders, but I also think that this is something that can be experienced in many of our roles, right? So I think that it is important for us to hold ourselves accountable enough to recognize when we have made something about us as opposed to honoring the individuality of others. Like, does that make sense? Like sometimes people have their own way of processing. They have their own perspectives and their lived experiences. And we can't always make how they process things an attack against us. And sometimes we find ourselves in that scenario. And so I want to challenge any one of you that are listening to this message. I want to challenge you with these things. Not every question is an attack, especially the devil. Sometimes we make things about the devil, y'all. Not every resistance is rebellion. Sometimes it's reflection. Sometimes it is people processing through the connection of their own pain or their own lived experiences. Sometimes it is simply the way that people perceive things and the way that they see things. And so for us as leaders, emotional maturity, it has everything to do with causing us, it has everything to do with, I don't want to use the word causing, but what I will say it is emotional maturity. It allows us to stay anchored, right, in our leadership while allowing other people to process things in their own way. Leadership happens when we respond and not react, okay? As leaders, we have to stop reacting. Now, what I'm going to say is that I have experienced this on many levels, right? I've experienced this as the leader, feeling challenged, feeling disrespected, feeling dishonored, all because I did not respect the individuality of the person that I was dealing with. So I perceived their questioning me or their unwillingness to see things my way as an injury. I received it as, oh, they just doing that because it's me, because if it was someone else, they would, that kind of thing. And I had it through my growing and even growing in my relationship with that individual person, I learned to understand that that had nothing to do with me and it had everything to do with how they experienced the world. So I stopped reacting to them and I started connecting with them. And as a result of my growth, that relationship blossomed and there was a respect. It had nothing to do with respect, but I learned my supervisee and I learned how they worked and how they functioned and how they processed the world. And so we were able to develop a relationship where we respected one another. Now, the other part to that is I was that person that caused injury. And why did I do that? Because, as a teacher by nature, as someone who thinks, who overthinks at times, um, there have been times when, guess what? I didn't accept something immediately. I needed time to process. I needed to see it. I needed to research it, especially when it comes to the word. I had to see it in the Bible. I needed to interpret that thing in a way where I could digest it. And that caused an injury because that person, that leader, they interpret it as I was challenging them or as they interpret it in a way that it wasn't, and as a result that caused injury. And then I can also say that I experienced this even in my personal relationships where I made someone's personality and the way that they experience the world, I created a personal injury from that. They were being themselves and I felt attacked because they were processing the world and processing situations as they process them. And I had to learn to not take things personal and see them as that is how they think or that is how they see things. And so of course, it requires a level of acceptance. Now, in all of these scenarios, it doesn't mean that I stopped having my personal perspective. It didn't mean that as a leader, I stopped, I stopped expecting what I expected, but it had to do with the relational piece to that and how I perceived or received that other person. And I think that it is so important that we honor the individuality of others and that we don't allow ourselves to take things personal to the point where we are internalizing someone else's experiences. God bless you, everyone. And I hope that this was helpful to you. Have an amazing day.